The night air was cool in London as James Wilson walked unsteadily down the street. He wore a plastic crown on his head, a bright red cape on his back, and carried a toy sword in his hand. James was not from England. He was an American teacher from Ohio who had saved money for 2 years to visit London with his friends. Today was James's 32nd birthday, and his friends had planned something special. They were having a costume party pub crawl. Each person had to dress up as someone famous from history. James chose King Arthur because he loved stories about knights and magical swords when he was a child. "Another round for King Arthur," shouted Mike, James's best friend who was dressed as Albert Einstein. The group of 6 friends cheered as more beer arrived at their table. This was their 5th pub of the night. James had already had 7 pints of beer. His words were starting to slur, and he felt like the room was spinning a little, but he was having the time of his life. "I declare this the best birthday ever," James announced, standing up and almost knocking over his chair. He raised his plastic sword high in the air. Other people in the pub looked over and laughed. Some took pictures with their phones. By the time they left the pub, James was no longer just a man in a costume. In his mind, he had become King Arthur. He spoke with a terrible British accent and kept calling his friends his loyal subjects. "We must find the Holy Grail," James proclaimed as they walked through the streets of London. His friends laughed, but they were also getting tired. It was nearly midnight. "Maybe we should head back to the hotel," suggested Sarah, who was dressed as Cleopatra. Her feet hurt from walking, and she was worried about James, who could barely walk straight. "Nonsense," James replied. "The night is young, and we have quests to complete." As they turned a corner, they saw Buckingham Palace in the distance, lit up against the dark sky. James gasped and pointed with his toy sword. "Camelot," he shouted. "My castle." His friends tried to explain that it wasn't Camelot, but James wouldn't listen. He started walking faster toward the palace. His friends hurried to keep up, but when a group of tourists stopped them to ask for directions, James disappeared into the crowd. "Where did he go?" Mike asked, looking around. They called his name and searched the area, but James was nowhere to be seen. His phone went straight to voicemail when they called. "Should we be worried?" asked Lai, another friend dressed as Genghis Khan. "This is James we're talking about," Mike said. "He probably found another pub or is taking selfies with a statue somewhere." What they didn't know was that James had made it all the way to the gates of Buckingham Palace. There, standing tall and serious in his red uniform and tall bearskin hat, was Royal Guard Officer Robert Phillips. Unlike most guards who stay completely still, Officer Phillips was just finishing his shift and was walking to change his clothes. James's eyes widened when he saw the guard. In his drunk mind, this wasn't a royal guard, but a brave soldier in need of recognition. Without thinking, James pushed through a small crowd of tourists and approached Officer Phillips. "Loyal soldier," James called out, his American accent breaking through his attempt at sounding British. "Halt where you stand." People nearby turned to look. Some pulled out their phones and started recording. No one expected what would happen next, least of all Officer Phillips, who had been a royal guard for just 6 months and was known for being very serious about his job. Officer Robert Phillips heard the loud American voice and turned around. He was 24 years old and had been a royal guard for only 6 months. His job was to stand still, look straight ahead, and not smile or talk to tourists. But his shift had just ended, and he was walking back to change his clothes. James stumbled toward the guard, waving his plastic sword. "I am King Arthur of Camelot," he shouted. His crown was now sitting crooked on his head, and his cape was dragging on the ground behind him. A small crowd of about 20 people gathered to watch. Many held up their phones to record what was happening. They expected the guard to ignore James or call for help to remove the drunk tourist. "Brave soldier," James said, now standing right in front of Officer Phillips. "You have shown great courage in protecting my castle." Officer Phillips looked at James with a serious face. He should have walked away or called for backup. That was what the rule book said to do. But something about the happy, silly American made him pause. James raised his plastic sword and tapped Officer Phillips on each shoulder. "I, King Arthur, hereby make you Sir Robert of London. Rise, brave knight, and join my round table." The crowd went quiet. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Then, to everyone's surprise, Officer Phillips slowly bent down on one knee and bowed his head. "I am honored, Your Majesty," he said in a clear, loud voice. The crowd gasped. Then they cheered and clapped. Nobody had ever seen a royal guard play along with a tourist like this before. James looked shocked for a moment. Then a huge smile spread across his face. "The king is pleased," he announced, raising his arms in the air. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Speech, speech from the king." James looked around at all the faces watching him. Then he spotted a small stone bench nearby. He walked over to it, almost falling twice, and climbed up. "My loyal subjects," he began, swaying slightly as he stood on the bench. "Today is a great day for our kingdom." Officer Phillips surprised everyone again. Instead of walking away, he moved to stand next to the bench, as if he was really protecting his king. "In Camelot," James continued, "we believe in friendship between all people and all countries. British, American, doesn't matter. We are all seeking the holy grail of friendship." His words were slurred, but there was something honest and heartfelt about what he was saying. The crowd, which had grown to about 50 people now, listened quietly. "Sir Robert," James said, pointing to Officer Phillips, "is a true example of what a knight should be. Brave, kind, and with a good sense of humor." The crowd laughed and applauded. As James continued his speech, videos of the strange knighting ceremony were already being shared online. A tourist from Japan posted it on TikTok. An Australian couple uploaded it to Facebook. Within minutes, the videos were being shared thousands of times. James tried to bow to the crowd, but he lost his balance. He would have fallen face first onto the pavement if Officer Phillips hadn't quickly stepped forward to catch him. "The king requires rest in his castle," Officer Phillips announced to the crowd, still playing along. "The ceremony is concluded." The crowd applauded again as Officer Phillips steadied James. The American was clearly very drunk now, and his eyes were starting to close. "Where are you staying, sir?" Officer Phillips asked quietly, no longer pretending. James blinked slowly. "The Knight's Inn Hotel. I think. My friends are somewhere." Officer Phillips nodded. He needed to help this drunk tourist get back safely to his hotel. What began as a simple joke was now turning into something more complicated, and neither man knew that by morning they would both be internet famous. Officer Phillips helped James sit down on the bench. The crowd slowly began to break up, but many people stayed nearby, still filming and talking excitedly about what they had just seen. "I need to find your friends," Officer Phillips said. "Do you have a phone?" James patted his pockets and pulled out his phone. The battery was dead. "No power in the kingdom," he mumbled. Just then, a woman pushed through the crowd. "James, there you are." It was Sarah, his friend dressed as Cleopatra. Behind her came Mike and the rest of their group. "We've been looking everywhere for you," Mike said. Then he noticed Officer Phillips in his Royal Guard uniform. "Oh no. Is he in trouble?" "No trouble," Officer Phillips said with a small smile. "Just making sure the king gets home safely." Sarah looked confused. "The king? Sir Robert is my new knight," James said proudly, pointing at Officer Phillips. "I made him part of the round table." Mike laughed. "I'm so sorry about our friend. It's his birthday, and he's had way too much to drink." "It's fine," Officer Phillips said, "but he should probably get back to your hotel now." As James's friends helped him up, a man approached them. He was wearing a suit and had an earpiece in his ear. "Phillips," the man said in a stern voice. "A word, please." Officer Phillips's face turned serious. The man was his supervisor, Captain Harris. Phillips stepped aside to talk to him. "What do you think you're doing?" Captain Harris asked in a low, angry voice. "Playing games with drunk tourists. Do you know how many videos of you are already online?" Officer Phillips stood straight. "I apologize, sir. I was off duty and—" "Off duty." Captain Harris cut him off. "You're still in uniform. You represent the Royal Guard. This is completely unacceptable behavior." Meanwhile, James's friends were trying to get him to walk toward the street to find a taxi. "Did you really knight that guard?" Lai asked. "Yep," James said proudly. "Sir Robert of London. Good man." "That was actually pretty cool," Mike admitted. "Everyone was filming it. You might be famous tomorrow." As they were about to leave, James turned around. He saw Officer Phillips standing stiffly while his supervisor talked to him. Even in his drunk state, James could tell the guard was in trouble. "Wait," James said. He pulled away from his friends and walked unsteadily back toward the two men. "Excuse me," James said, interrupting their conversation. His voice was slurred but determined. "Are you giving Sir Robert a hard time?" Captain Harris looked at James with cold eyes. "This doesn't concern you, sir. Please move along." "It does concern me," James insisted. "Sir Robert showed kindness tonight. He made a lot of people happy. He made me happy on my birthday. If he's in trouble because of me, that's not right." Captain Harris was about to respond when his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression changed. He had just received a message from his own boss with a link to one of the videos. It already had over 50,000 views and thousands of positive comments. The message read, "People are loving this. Good publicity for once. Let it go." Captain Harris looked from his phone to James to Officer Phillips. He sighed. "Phillips, make sure this tourist gets to his hotel safely," he said finally. "We'll discuss this tomorrow." As Captain Harris walked away, James grinned at Officer Phillips. "The king has great power," he whispered loudly. Officer Phillips couldn't help but smile back. "Indeed, Your Majesty." Together with James's friends, Officer Phillips helped get a taxi. As they were putting James into the car, he asked for the guard's full name. "Robert Phillips," the guard told him. "I'll remember that," James said, though everyone doubted he would remember anything in the morning. A knight always remembers his king, and a king never forgets his knights. The taxi drove away with James and his friends. Officer Phillips watched it go, not yet realizing that this strange encounter would change both their lives. The next morning, James woke up with a terrible headache. The sun coming through the hotel curtains hurt his eyes. His mouth felt dry, and his head pounded. He groaned and pulled the blanket over his head. "He's alive," Mike said from across the room. He was already dressed and drinking coffee. "Barely," James mumbled. "What happened last night? I remember the pubs, but everything after is a blur." Mike walked over and sat on the edge of James's bed. He was smiling in a way that made James nervous. "You don't remember anything? Not even becoming a king, or making a royal guard your knight?" James sat up quickly, then grabbed his head in pain. "What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, Mike handed James his phone. On the screen was a video playing on YouTube. The title read, "American King Arthur Knights Royal Guard at Buckingham Palace. Best thing ever." James watched in horror as he saw himself in his cheap King Arthur costume, tapping a real royal guard on the shoulders with a plastic sword. Then he heard himself giving a speech about friendship between nations. "Oh no," James whispered. "Please tell me this isn't real." "It's very real," Mike said. "And it's everywhere. This video has over 2 million views already. You're trending on Twitter with the hashtag #KingArthurofio." James fell back on his pillow. "I'm going to be arrested. I'll never be allowed back in England." Just then, Sarah and the others came into the room. They were all smiling and looking at their phones. "Our king is awake," Lai announced, bowing dramatically. "This isn't funny," James said. "I disrespected a royal guard. I could get in serious trouble." "Actually," Sarah said, showing him her phone, "people love it. The guard played along, remember? That's why it's going viral. Look at the comments." James read some of the comments on the video. "This is the best thing I've seen all year. That guard deserves a medal for being such a good sport. King Arthur's speech about friendship actually made me cry a little. Sir Robert and King Arthur for president." As James scrolled through more comments, there was a knock at the hotel room door. Mike opened it to find a young woman holding a microphone and a man with a camera. "BBC News," the woman said. "We're looking for James Wilson, also known as King Arthur of Ohio. We'd like to interview him about last night's viral moment." James's eyes widened in panic. He slid down under the covers. "He's not available right now," Mike told them. "Maybe later." After they left, James's phone started ringing. It was a number he didn't recognize. Then it rang again with another unknown number. Within minutes, his phone was constantly buzzing with calls, texts, and social media notifications. "What do I do?" James asked his friends. "I can't talk to reporters. I was drunk and acting stupid." "You weren't acting stupid," Sarah said. "You were having fun, and you made something magical happen. The guard could have ignored you or had you removed, but he chose to play along. Now you're both internet famous." James checked his email and found messages from American TV shows, British newspapers, and even a famous talk show host wanting him on their program. There was also an email from someone claiming to be Officer Robert Phillips's sister. It read, "My brother can't contact you directly because he's still on duty and his commanders are watching him closely after last night. But he wanted me to let you know he's not angry. In fact, it's the most fun he's had in years. The other guards are calling him Sir Robert now. If you want to talk to him, here's his personal email." James stared at the message for a long time. Then he started typing a reply. "Dear Sir Robert's sister," he wrote, "please tell your brother that King Arthur sends his royal apologies for any trouble I caused, and I would very much like to thank him properly when things calm down." What James didn't know was that Officer Phillips was having a very interesting morning too. While James was hiding in his hotel room, Officer Robert Phillips was standing at attention outside Buckingham Palace. It was his regular shift, but today felt very different. Tourists kept walking by and whispering. Many pointed at him. Some even bowed or saluted. "Is that him, Sir Robert?" he heard people ask each other. Phillips tried to keep his face serious, as guards must do, but it was hard. He had never gotten this much attention before. Earlier that morning, his commander, Colonel Williams, had called him into his office. Phillips had expected to be punished or even fired. Instead, the colonel had surprised him. "Phillips," the colonel had said, "what you did last night was against the rules." He paused, then added, "But the public loves it. The palace has received thousands of positive messages. People are saying it shows we have a sense of humor." Phillips had stood straight, not sure how to respond. "Just so you know," the colonel continued, "the official position is that you were being polite to a visitor. You were not playing along or acting." "Understood." "Yes, sir," Phillips had answered. "Good." And Phillips, "Well done." Now, as he stood guard, Phillips thought about the American tourist, James. He wondered if James remembered anything from last night. Phillips hadn't told anyone, but he had been having a very bad day before the knighting happened. He had just learned that his request for time off to visit his sick grandfather had been denied. He had been feeling angry and trapped in his job. Then James had appeared with his silly crown and his friendly smile. At first, Phillips had been annoyed, but there was something so honest and happy about James that Phillips couldn't help playing along. For those few minutes, he had forgotten his problems. He had even enjoyed himself. During his break, Phillips checked his phone. His sister, Emma, had sent him a message. "The American King emailed me back. He apologizes for any trouble and wants to thank you when things calm down." Phillips smiled. He typed back, "Tell him no apology needed. Best night I've had on duty." Throughout the day, other guards teased Phillips, calling him Sir Robert when officers weren't listening. But it wasn't mean. They were impressed that he had done something that made people happy. By afternoon, the story had grown even bigger. A famous actor tweeted, "King Arthur and Sir Robert just showed us all how international relations should work. #knighting diplomacy." The American Embassy in London even posted, "We appreciate the special relationship between King Arthur of Ohio and Sir Robert of the Royal Guard. Best alliance since 1942. When Phillips finished his shift and checked his phone again, he had hundreds of new followers on his private Instagram account. News websites had found his profile and shared his photos. People were calling him the coolest Royal Guard ever. Emma called him, "Rob, this is crazy. A morning TV show just contacted me. They want both you and the American on their show tomorrow. Can you do it?" "I don't think I'm allowed." Phillips said, "I'm still on duty tomorrow." "Check with your colonel again," Emma suggested. "The palace seems to be enjoying the positive attention." Phillips thought about it. Part of him wanted to meet James properly when James was sober. He wanted to tell him that his silly knighting ceremony had actually meant something to him. "I'll ask," Phillips promised. What he didn't know was that across London, in a small meeting room at the palace, royal staff were discussing how to use this viral moment to their advantage. And they had plans for both King Arthur and Sir Robert. James and his friends were eating lunch in their hotel restaurant. He wore a baseball cap pulled low over his face to avoid being recognized. 3 different TV crews had already come to the hotel looking for him. "We leave London tomorrow," James said. "Maybe I can just hide until then." "Are you kidding?" Mike said. "This is amazing. You're famous." "For being drunk and stupid," James mumbled. Sarah put down her fork. "James, have you actually watched the full video?" "Yes, you were drunk, but what you said in your speech was really nice. People are sharing it because it made them happy." James's phone buzzed with a new email. It was from someone at the Royal Communications Office. James read it aloud to his friends. "Dear Mr. Wilson, on behalf of the royal household, I am writing to invite you to a special tour of Buckingham Palace tomorrow at 10 a.m. This is a private invitation and not open to the public or press. We would be honored if you would accept. Please respond to confirm. Sincerely, Margaret Harlow, Royal Communications Office." "Is this real?" James asked. Lai took the phone and studied the email. "It looks real. The email address ends with royal.uk. You have to go," Mike said. "What if it's a trap?" James worried. "What if they arrest me for bothering the guard?" "They wouldn't invite you just to arrest you," Sarah said. "They could have done that already." After much debate, James replied to accept the invitation. He asked if his friends could come too, but the answer was that this was a solo invitation. Meanwhile, across the city, Officer Phillips was in Colonel Williams' office again. "The palace has requested your presence tomorrow at 10 a.m., the colonel said. "You're to wear your formal uniform." "May I ask why, sir?" Phillips asked. "They didn't share details with me. But it has to do with your American friend." Phillips felt nervous. "Am I in trouble, sir?" The colonel almost smiled. "If you were in trouble, they wouldn't ask for you in your formal uniform. That's reserved for special occasions." Phillips left the office wondering what was happening. He called his sister. "Emma, something strange is going on. The palace wants me there tomorrow in formal uniform." "Maybe they're going to officially knight you," Emma joked. "This isn't funny," Phillips said. "What if they make me apologize publicly? What if they make an example of me?" "Rob, relax," Emma said. "Have you seen the palace's social media today?" Phillips hadn't. Emma told him to check it right away. On the official royal family social media account was a post that read, We welcome diplomatic relations with the Kingdom of Camelot. Hashtag Knight Sir Robert with a crown emoji. Phillips couldn't believe it. The palace was joking about the situation. This was unheard of. That evening, James received another email. This one contained instructions for tomorrow, and ended with, "Please note that Officer Robert Phillips will also be present." James felt a mix of emotions. He was nervous about meeting the guard properly. Would Phillips be angry? Would he blame James for all the attention? James decided to write an email directly to Phillips using the address his sister had shared. "Dear Officer Phillips," he wrote, "I am truly sorry for any trouble I caused you. I was very drunk and acting foolish. I want you to know that I admire how kind you were to play along instead of having me removed. Whatever happens tomorrow, I wanted to thank you for being a good sport. Sincerely, James, the idiot in the King Arthur costume." To his surprise, Phillips replied just 10 minutes later. "Dear James, no apologies needed. In a job where I must be serious every day, you gave me a chance to smile. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm glad to meet the real you. And for what it's worth, you gave a pretty good speech for a drunk king. Rest assured, you have a loyal knight in London. Robert." James read the email 3 times. Maybe tomorrow wouldn't be so bad after all. The next morning, James woke up early. He was too nervous to sleep more. He took extra time getting ready, making sure he looked clean and proper. He wore his best clothes: dark blue pants, a white button-up shirt, and a navy blazer. "You look like you're going to a job interview," Mike said, watching James fix his hair for the 5th time. "I'm meeting people from the royal household," James replied. "I don't want to look like a slob." "Should we wait for you here?" Sarah asked. James nodded. "I have no idea how long this will take. Our flight is at 8 p.m., so I'll be back in plenty of time." At 9:30 a.m., James took a taxi to Buckingham Palace. His hands were shaking slightly as he approached the staff entrance he had been directed to use. A woman in a dark suit was waiting for him. "Mr. Wilson, I'm Margaret Harlow. We spoke by email," she said, shaking his hand. "Thank you for coming." She led James through parts of the palace that tourists never see. They walked down long hallways with beautiful paintings and fancy furniture. James wanted to look at everything, but he was too nervous to enjoy it. Finally, they'd reached a small but elegant meeting room. Inside, 2 men in suits were talking quietly. And there, standing by the window in a red dress uniform, with gold buttons and white gloves, was Officer Robert Phillips. Phillips turned when James entered. Their eyes met, and after a moment of awkward silence, both men smiled. "Your Majesty," Phillips said with a small bow of his head. "Sir Robert," James replied, then added quickly, "I'm really sorry about all this." One of the men in suits stepped forward. "Mr. Wilson, I'm Thomas Blake, head of Royal Communications. This is David Foster from the Palace Charity Foundation." They all sat down, and Mr. Blake explained why they had invited James. "What happened between you two has captured people's imagination," he said. "The videos have been viewed over 50 million times worldwide. We've received thousands of messages from people who were touched by the moment." Mr. Foster opened a laptop and showed James some of the comments. "My son has autism and rarely smiles, but he's watched your knighting video 20 times and laughs every time. I was having the worst day of my life until I saw this. It reminded me that joy can come from unexpected places. As an American living in London, this made me feel like our countries still have a special bond." James was shocked. "I had no idea," he said softly. Mr. Foster closed the laptop. "We have a proposal for you, Mr. Wilson. The Royal Charity Foundation supports veterans' mental health programs. Officer Phillips here has a personal connection to this cause." Phillips spoke up. "My father was in the military. He struggled with PTSD. These programs helped him a lot. We want to host a special charity event," Mr. Foster continued. "We'd like you two to be the guests of honor. We believe your story can help raise significant funds. James looked at Phillips. What do you think about this? I think it's a good cause, Phillips said. And it would give meaning to our viral moment. James frowned. But I'm supposed to fly home tonight. I'm a teacher. I have to be back at school on Monday. Mr. Blake leaned forward. We've thought of that. If you're willing to stay 2 more days, the palace will cover your expenses and arrange for your return flight. We can also provide a letter explaining the situation to your school. James didn't know what to say. This was all happening so fast. There's one more thing, Mr. Blake added. The charity event is black tie. We'll need a proper King Arthur and Sir Robert. He pointed to a side room where 2 garment bags hung on a rack. One was labeled King and the other Knight. May we show you? Mr. Blake asked. James and Phillips looked at each other. Then they both started to laugh. James called his friends from the palace to tell them about the charity event. They were excited for him, but sad they would have to fly home without him. We'll take your luggage back with us, Sarah offered. You can travel lighter for a few days. Are you sure about this? Mike asked. What about your classes? I already emailed my principal, James said. The palace sent an official letter too. He thinks it's amazing and gave me the extra days off. After the call, James and Officer Phillips, who asked James to call him Robert, were shown the costumes for the charity event. They were nothing like James's cheap Halloween outfit from the pub crawl. The King Arthur costume had real metal armor that shined like silver. It came with a deep red cape made of velvet and a crown that looked like real gold. The Excalibur sword was a perfect copy of the one from movies with jewels in the handle. Robert's knight costume was just as impressive. It had a chain-mail shirt that clinked when he moved, a tunic with a red cross, and a real metal helmet. These are film costumes, Mr. Blake explained, from a big movie about King Arthur that was made a few years ago. The studio donated them when they heard about our event. James carefully touched the armor. I don't think I should wear this when I'm drinking. Everyone laughed. The event is tomorrow night, Mr. Foster said. We've arranged for you to stay at the Goring Hotel. It's where many royal guests stay. But what about Robert? James asked. Does he get time off for this? Robert smiled. I've been given special permission to attend. It's not every day a guard gets to be a knight. That afternoon, James checked into the fancy hotel. His room was bigger than his whole apartment back home. There was a welcome basket with British treats and a note signed by the palace staff. Robert came by later to practice their entrance for the charity event. They needed to walk in together, wave to the crowd, and give short speeches. Are you nervous? Robert asked as they sat in James's hotel room drinking tea. Terrified, James admitted. I'm not good at public speaking when I'm sober. From what I saw, you're quite good at it when you're drunk, Robert joked. James groaned. Please don't remind me. Actually, Robert said, becoming serious, I wanted to thank you. Thank me. For what? Getting you in trouble. Robert shook his head. For giving me a chance to do something different. I love being the guard, but sometimes it feels like I'm just decoration. People take pictures of me, but they don't see me as a real person. I didn't see you as a real person either, James admitted. I was too drunk to see anything clearly. But when you knighted me, I felt seen in a different way. And now look, we're raising money for a cause I care deeply about. They talked for hours. James learned that Robert had wanted to be a guard since he was a little boy. Robert learned that James taught history to middle school students and loved to make the past come alive for them. So that's why you chose King Arthur for your costume, Robert said. He was always my favorite historical figure, James said, though historians debate if he was even real. Well, now there's proof, Robert said with a smile. There are videos of King Arthur all over the internet. As evening came, both men felt less nervous about tomorrow. They were no longer strangers brought together by a drunk mistake. They were becoming friends. What they didn't know was that the charity event would be much bigger than either of them expected.